I'm here today with Melissa Zavala. She's our broker at Broadpoint Properties, and with all the buzz in media with regards to the NAR settlement and buyers agents compensations, I just wanted to get your take on everything that's going on and how this will affect our industry, buyers agents, and the consumer.
Well, there's a lot to unpack with regard to the court case and the NAR settlement. Initially, we just were deluged, as you know, with emails and communication about all the stuff that's going on. But in a nutshell, the source of the problem is a lawsuit that took place, a class action suit in Missouri, whereby a bunch of people who sold their homes with local agents, they all had successful home sales and they closed and they moved on, but they felt that in Missouri they were didn't have a lot of choice with respect to the amount of commission that they paid to the buyer's side, and together they formulated the class action suit against NAR, the National Association of Realtors, and a lot of the major brokerages in Missouri. And then there was a trickle-down effect where we started to see a bunch of other little major lawsuits with other brokerages.
Like a lot of copycat lawsuits in different states, and then it seems like it's heading west.
Yes, initially it seemed to me that it was just going on in Missouri, and all of a sudden it's everywhere. So there got to be this really big conversation as a result of this about what are buyer's agents actually doing? Should the seller be responsible for compensating the buyer's agent if the buyer's agent actually works for the buyer? Should it be like one price for all buyer's agents, or should this be something up for negotiation? Now, what we're seeing a lot in the media is how it's going to really, really change the industry. But the truth is that buyers have always compensated their agents, and buyers' agents actually do a ton of stuff for their buyers, their clients. So, you know, that's an area where you have a lot of expertise with your team, that maybe you can talk about what that's about.
The thing is that there is this, sometimes there's a thought that buyer's agents are more like chauffeurs than really having a fiduciary responsibility towards buyers. They just hop in the car and then they'll show you a home, and if you like the home you make an offer and that's it. But there's a lot more that goes into it. You know, there's a lot of turbulence, there's a lot of activity, there's a lot of organization, there's a lot of education that goes into being able to properly represent a buyer in a transaction. And then compensation, it is a huge factor in our industry, but historically it has been something that's been offered on the MLS service with regards to how much compensation is going to be offered to a buyer's agent. And but there is always this agency agreement between the agent and their client. But I guess that's the main thing that we're going over right now. But I do believe that the changes that are coming up would shed light on all the activities and responsibilities that buyer's agents have as buyers start to see that now they have to negotiate with the seller for that compensation in their initial offer. So that's going to be an interesting change, but I think that seasoned realtors that represent their clients will be able to negotiate not only for their client's best interest, but also for that compensation. Because that's part of that representation. It's not just show the house and that's it. You know, there's always this story about how you got an engineer that comes in to fix some piece of machinery, and he's done in 30 minutes, and the guy, you know, he's like, well, give me an invoice. And it's like, here's $10,000 for, and he's like, $10,000? All you did was turn a screw. Well, I'm not charging you for turning the screw. I'm charging you for the years of knowledge and expertise that it takes to get to the point to know that it's just turning the screw to be able to make this whole machine function a proper way. So true realtors, true buyers agents will demonstrate their value in this transition. So I think that's what I look forward to.
I think that is just a terrific point, because a really skilled buyer's agent just can really dive in and really support the consumer in finding the best home for them. And it starts from the very beginning, not just with the MLS, searching the MLS to look for the best homes that meet the client's needs, to setting them up for searches, making those appointments, facilitating that. But once you get to writing the offer and negotiating, it's also all about the inspections. And so we have, I know that we have a client right now that's purchasing a multi-unit property. There's a new law with regard to balcony inspections. Had it not been for the buyer's agent to tell them, they would be buying this multi-unit dwelling without doing those balcony inspections, and those balcony inspections could cost this person $50,000, $100,000 in repairs if they didn't have the information up front. So just getting the right person to represent you, to look at and finesse the fine details. And also, in a way, I often say, well, like, an attorney is there to often protect you from yourself, right? So if you go to court and you represent yourself, you may not know all the laws, and you may not be able to argue effectively your case, but you have this attorney there to support you, but not only that, but to protect you from yourself. And in a way, I think to a small degree, agents can do that too. After the home inspection, the agent can point out some things that, based on their experience, could be red flags. Doesn't mean that a buyer needs to walk away from the house, but certainly they could support them in renegotiating the purchase price or getting certain things repaired. But we as buyers, when we are buyers, and you and I have both been buyers before, we become so enamored of the house that we get this like crazy eyes where we are not even thinking objectively, and that's where really a buyer's agent can be very, very effective.
I mean, definitely, we as buyer's agents will negotiate repairs and also point out those things that at that moment are blind spots to a buyer. Well, first off, the whole transaction, you know, how many homes does the average person purchase throughout their lifetime? I think that maybe as often as people get divorced. You know, it's like maybe once or maybe twice, you know, but divorce attorneys, they do this all the time. So they know what to look for. They know, and they have all the resources to better serve their clients, so when the time comes, they are best prepared. So the same thing with buyer's agents. We know the local area market. We know the local realtors. We know, after doing so many inspections, we know what to look for and what little red flags the average consumer will just fly over, so that we can negotiate in their best interest. So yeah, it's something. I guess it's not really like don't go at it alone. People are not going to go purchase home on their own, but maybe they will be more inclined to working with the listing agent. Well, that itself could also lead to other problems, because the listing agent in a dual agency situation where the buyer is working with the listing agent as well, whose best interest will that listing agent be looking towards? You know, will it be the seller? Or would it be the buyer? Will they call all things out that a typical buyer's agent would? So that in itself, it opens up another can of worms. So what is your take?
Yeah,
on
I really think that dual agency, well, some states it's not even permitted any longer, but in California it's currently permissible. But as every agent in our office has a fiduciary responsibility to their client and a responsibility to the opposing side of the transaction for a duty of care and honesty. However, if you're a dual agent, you have that fiduciary obligation to both sides. So hypothetically, let's just say I want to buy a home and I go to the listing agent and I say, you know, I know that the price is X, but I can only go up to Y. But that same listing agent also knows what the seller wants and how low they'll go on their price. And so he or she has all of this information in their head, this secret information, but they can't really support either side. And they almost become kind of like, what would it be, like a vacuum or a siphon for information, instead of really being able to support someone and getting the best deal, getting a home that mostly suits their needs. So yes, while there may be through the course of the settlement an opportunity to pay a little bit less for a home because you're trying to circumvent dual agency, it may come back to blow up, because you may not have gotten that super effective representation, because if I'm a dual agent, I have to keep so much information inside and cannot be most effective at representing my clients. So that's a concern for me, and I think it'll be really interesting to see what California specifically, because of course we're in Southern California, how this will play out over the next several years with respect to dual agency in California. And who knows, maybe we'll evolve into a state that doesn't allow dual agency anymore.
That is true.
And that will be something that will be really interesting to see. I think that some of the concerns that a consumer might have is with respect to paying their agent. I know that there are going to be a lot of opportunities and ways that agents will get paid, and the main difference is it's just not going to be pre-negotiated up front between the listing agent and the seller, but it's going to come up naturally through the course of the transaction. And that's why I think in California we're going to start really using those buyer's representation agreements. We've always had those, but because the amount of the buyer's agent's earnings was always on the MLS, we were able to circumvent those in certain situations. But now, of course, every time I want to go show a home, I'm going to need to make sure that I have something written up with my client first, so that I can advocate for them and also work maybe to get the other side to compensate on the commission, or to figure out how we will get compensated. But I think that ultimately, the buyer always has paid the commission, even because they've paid a little more in the sales price. So that's how it's been compensated. So ultimately, not much is going to change in that respect. It's just that the paperwork's going to be done in a different order, and things will, in order to get everything dialed in. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thought is that California has always, our contracts have always been really in line with all these changes. I think that our listing agreement was always stipulating, okay, how much compensation is to the listing side, how much compensation will be offered to the buyer side, and there was always a choice how much the seller could offer. So this lawsuit originated in Missouri, but I don't know their practices there. It might be slightly different than California. But moving forward, it's just going to be more clarity towards the buyer, the consumer. Okay, I'm going to pay my down payment, I'm going to pay my closing costs, and I'm also going to pay my representation towards my buyer's agent, I'm sorry. So then it will be an opportunity. I see it as an opportunity for seasoned buyer's agents to demonstrate their value, and also for buyers to be able to shop for the person that's going to be able to negotiate the best terms for you, that's going to bring you the best affiliates, that the third-party service providers, inspectors, and referrals to inspectors or termite inspection companies, plumbers, or lenders. There's a wealth of knowledge that comes when you help a lot of buyers. So buyers go through the process once or twice, maybe 3 times, but as buyer's agents, we go through it 100 times over. So I think that it is going to be an opportunity. Moving forward, it's just going to be more clarity for the buyer. Okay, we're going to have an agency agreement, and when we go and make offers, we will be negotiating for that compensation to get paid through escrow, maybe a credit from the seller. So it's going to behoove the buyer to work with an agent that can negotiate strongly in their favor. So it's like negotiate not just for price, but for closing cost credits, for credit to compensate the buyer's agent. It's just going to be done in that manner, I think, moving forward.
Yeah, I think speaking to your comment about the engineer that comes and turns the screw a little bit, I think that that's one of the things that really effective buyer's agents do, is they are like the best, most professional pilot on the most turbulent flight. So they are driving that plane, and there may be turbulence. Who knows? The appraisal may not come in at value. There might be some issues with the loan. They might discover some issues with the house that need to be renegotiated into the terms. So there will be turbulence, but a really effective agent will just, make that ride as smooth as possible. Might not be perfect, but it'll be pretty smooth. And one of the things that I think I notice or hear a lot, or just get a sense of, is that people think buyers, they didn't really do much. Well, that's because that was a really great buyer's agent. They made it so smooth, it made it seem like they didn't do much. And they didn't call their client every time they had a hiccup or a hurdle and say, oh my God, you're not going to believe it. but instead they just took care of it and they didn't say anything because they were so professional. And that's one of the things at Broadpoint that we've really focused on is our training. And as you know, we do so much training with our agents, and we have a very long list of trainings, and we're really getting dialed in again to provide more and more training to our agents so that they can just fly those most difficult plane rides with the most smooth ride.
Yeah, I love that analogy about the pilot, because imagine how many flights we go on every year, and there's always turbulence. No matter what. There's never been a transaction with even a little bit of turbulence or problems in the transaction that are not resolved by a very savvy and knowledgeable buyer's agent. And I wonder how many times pilots have gone above the clouds to avoid the turbulence, to make sure that his passengers don't get freaked out. Imagine if over the intercom they say, "We're going to go through some very rough turbulence. I'm so sorry, guys. I don't know what I'm doing over here." If he freaks out, the passenger's going to freak out. So if you're dealing with a buyer's agent that is not experienced, or somebody that just picks you up from whatever online agency you pick without properly vetting them, you're going to have a very rough experience, just because they haven't been seasoned and gone through enough storms to know how to navigate and how to solve some problems. But here at Broadpoint, I love that we go through a lot of training that will make every single buyer's agent here offer the best service. And not only that, there's always checks and balances. With you being our broker, there's no transaction that goes without going through your oversight, the associated broker's oversight, the team lead's oversight. So nothing will fall through the cracks, or we do the best that we can to avoid that, and then no turbulence, or limit the turbulence that the consumer feels.
I'm really excited to see how this is going to play out, and I know that we're here at Broadpoint, we're really geared up for it and we're ready to roll, and I don't think consumers should have any concern that they're not going to be well represented by anyone at our office, and I just look forward to our continued support of the Escondido and Greater San Diego community.
Agreed. Same.